8:03 a.m. The office was breathing, that low mechanical hum only old HVAC units can make. I set my coffee down, opened my inbox, and saw it. Subject line: Project Strategy Alignment. Thursday, 9:30 a.m. I clicked, 7 names, all familiar. The VP of Operations, Finance Director, Product Lead, 2 project managers, 1 client rep, 1 technical liaison. That's it. My name wasn't there. I stared at it for a moment. Not surprised, just aware. That's how it starts in places like this. Not with shouting, not with betrayal, just an email that forgets your name. They invited everyone, except the man who built the plan. That's when I stopped assuming fairness was automatic. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 45 years old, a system architect, and for 19 years, I've been the quiet reason other people's presentations don't crash. I don't talk much in meetings. I prefer things that don't depend on applause. Numbers, systems, logic. But that morning, logic was starting to sound a lot like silence. The invite had a file attached, agenda v5.pptex. I opened it. Slide 1, logo. Title. Slide 2, mission statement. Slide 3. My work, the real-time sync model, my algorithm, my data layout, but the header had changed. Data integrity was now consistency. A prettier word, in a weaker one. My author tag was gone. Greg Nolan's name sat under presenter. That told me everything I needed to know. Greg was the kind of man who could talk his way through a firewall. Smooth, confident, allergic to quiet. He liked being seen holding results. Didn't matter who built them. I scrolled further. No mention of source, no acknowledgments, no limits page. The kind of deck that wins applause. Right until someone asks a technical question. Only no one would, because the one person who could answer wasn't invited. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled once. Not a sigh. More like a calibration. I printed the email. Wrote in the corner, "Not invited." Then I checked the access logs. Greg had opened my prototype 4 times in 48 hours. No edit permissions, but enough to screenshot. I took a photo of the log, timestamp, username, everything. That's how I work. I don't argue, I record. A Slack notification popped up. Sarah, data analyst. You in the 9:30 on Thursday? I typed back, no invite. A few seconds later, she replied, "That's odd. I didn't answer. I wasn't looking for confirmation. I was collecting evidence." Across the glass wall, I saw Greg pass by. Blue shirt, sleeves rolled, the kind of smile that sells simplicity. "Morning, Marcus," he said. "Morning." He paused at my screen. "We're aligning Thursday. Big room, big folks." I asked, "Need anything from system side?" He smiled. "We've got it covered. I'll keep it tight." He walked off. I didn't move, didn't even blink. Because I knew exactly how tight looked in this place. Tight meant trimmed. Trimmed meant edited. Edited meant erased. I opened my local version of the file, added a hidden slide at the end. Integrity Protocol, Appendix. 12 lines. Every checkpoint. Every hash. Every timestamp that proved where the data came from. The truth. In bullet points. I didn't send it. I didn't tell anyone. I just saved it. Quietly. Then I looked again at the printed invite and pinned it to the divider above my desk. Underneath, I wrote in small black letters, "Silence isn't consent." Beside it sat a black USB drive labeled Hale RT Sync. It held the real, untampered system. I flipped it once between my fingers and set it back down, like a chess piece waiting for its move. Before leaving my desk, I looked again at the list of names on that email. Each one. A coordinate. Each coordinate, a pattern. Patterns don't lie. They just need time. I closed my laptop, listened to the faint click of the hinge. Across the glass, the projector light blinked from yellow to green. Greg was testing slides. I touched the cold glass between us and whispered under my breath. Not anger, not pain, just recognition. They invited everyone but me. And that was fine, because I wasn't waiting for an invitation anymore. I was waiting for Thursday. 9:30. I opened a new folder on my desktop. Fairness Proof. Inside it, I saved the screenshots, the logs, the metadata, and one text file that said, Thursday 9:30, I will be there. Before I left, I added one final note under the printed invite. Justice doesn't ask to be included. Then I smiled. The kind of smile you give when the numbers line up exactly as expected. I wasn't angry. I was ready. The week that followed was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that hums beneath fluorescent light and never quite turns off. They moved forward with the alignment meetings. 3 of them, all without me. Each one with my charts on screen, my data on display, and Greg Nolan standing in the spotlight as if he'd wired the whole thing himself. I didn't confront him. That would have been noise. And noise gets archived, not respected. Instead, I watched. Every day. I came in early, 7:30 sharp. The office smelled like burned coffee and carpet dust. I'd log into the system, review the overnight sync reports, and trace the patterns in the access logs. Greg was in there again. 3 more times, always between 10:15 and 10:45 p.m. IP, same fingerprints. He wasn't stealing my work. He was repurposing it, rearranging labels, renaming columns, simplifying logic until it looked like a PowerPoint idea instead of a functioning system. And the worst part? He was good at it. He had charm, the kind that doesn't need accuracy to look confident. He'd learned just enough of my vocabulary to sell it. I'd built integrity. He'd built optics, and in an office like ours, optics win. By Wednesday, the internal chat was full of praise, people quoting Greg's real-time consistency model like it was gospel. I read the messages one by one, expressionless. It's fascinating how people attach themselves to names, not truth. Sarah messaged me again. You're not on the client rehearsal list either. You should check with Mark, VP. I typed back, it's okay. I'm documenting. She replied with a single emoji, the kind that means you're too calm and that scares me a little. She wasn't wrong. That night, I stayed later than usual. The building emptied after 8. The cleaning crew came through with their rolling carts, dragging the smell of lemon polish and metal dustbins. I opened the meeting recording folder, the one no one remembers exists. The internal system saves every virtual meeting by default, even if no one watches it again. I pulled up the playback. There they were, Greg at the head of the table, Mark nodding, a few smiles, a few notes. Slide after slide. Architecture diagrams, my equations, only the words were different. He'd swapped integrity, protocol for performance boost. He'd changed failsafe to adaptive threshold. Buzzwords, bright, empty words. I paused at the timestamp 1843. Greg said, We've optimized the sync core to reduce latency by 32%. 32%. That was my number, my result. Except the real optimization was 33.2, not 32. He'd rounded it down, because round numbers sound cleaner. He didn't even steal precisely. I sat there in the dark office, the only sound coming from the playback. The recording caught laughter. Not loud. Just that polite corporate kind, the kind that says we've decided who the genius is today. I let the video run to the end, then exported it quietly to a hidden folder. Logs, recordings, proof no one would look there, no one ever. Looks where truth waits patiently. I wasn't angry, I was learning. learning how reputation is coded, how credit is transferred without paperwork. You don't need sabotage, just omission. And omission leaves. Fingerprints, too, in calendars, emails, file histories. By Thursday morning, the alignment deck had become the company's favorite talking point. I watched Greg walk past my desk, phone in hand, laughing into a Bluetooth earpiece. He didn't look like a thief. He looked like a winner. That's the thing about polished people. They never look guilty. They look booked. I finished my coffee, opened a new note on my screen, and wrote, Phase 2, observation complete. Then I minimized it. Because if Greg had been learning from my work, he hadn't yet learned that I was still in control of it. There's a kind of revenge that doesn't shout. It just logs in quietly and waits. Friday morning began with a new email in my inbox. Subject line: updated client deck, final version. The word final always makes me smile. In corporate life, it never really means final. It means temporarily safe. I downloaded the file anyway. It was a little heavier than before, a few megabytes. Larger, that's how you know when someone has added decoration but removed meaning. I opened it, and the proof was immediate. The slides were cleaner, brighter, emptier. He'd changed everything that mattered, not by deleting, but by simplifying. Slide 1 still had my structure, only now it wore a brighter blue and a tagline that sounded like it came from a billboard. Slide 5, the architecture diagram that held the heart of my system, was gone. In its place, a flowchart full of round arrows and meaningless buzzwords. At the bottom, a small gray line read, Author G. Nolan. For a moment, I didn't feel anger, just accuracy, because I knew he'd forgotten something. He'd changed the label, not the origin. I checked the file's hidden details, the kind most people never look at. Beneath the layers of his edits, the original author field still said mhale.buried, but still breathing. You can repaint the walls, but the foundation always remembers who built it. I took screenshots, all of them. Then I looked at the timestamps. The overwrite happened at exactly 11:42 p.m., 2 nights ago, the same evening he told me. We've got it covered. Now I understood what he meant. He hadn't covered the project. He'd covered the truth. By noon, Greg's final version had been forwarded to senior management. I watched the read receipts appear, one after another, 15 in total. 15 people who now believed Greg Nolan was the mind behind the model. I didn't reply. I didn't correct anyone, because I wasn't collecting apologies. I was collecting evidence. At 2 o'clock, I went into the presentation room, not invited, just present. Sometimes, that's all it takes to change the gravity of a room. Greg was setting up at the front. Laptop open, voice confident. He didn't notice me at first. When he finally did, there was a flicker, small but visible. Marcus, hey, didn't know you were coming. I didn't either, I said. I just wanted to see how my system performs when someone else's name is on it. He laughed lightly, the way guilty people do when they think they can still charm their way out. I sat in the back, silent, while he presented to the VP. Every slide looked polished, but hollow, every sentence smooth, but wrong. When the room emptied, I stayed, opened the shared project drive, and searched the server logs, and there it was. The proof. The master file, my version, had been replaced by his upload. Same. Filename.same folder, different author. Most people would have stopped there. But I built this system, and my system never truly deletes anything. In a hidden record, one Greg didn't even know existed. The logs showed both actions, my upload and his overwrite. 2 entries. Side by side, truth and imitation. I saved the record, encrypted it, and stored it somewhere no one else could reach. Then I sat back and smiled for the first time in days, 'cause even when they erase you, their fingerprints stay on the key they used. That evening, I stayed late in the office. The lights dimmed automatically after 8. But I wasn't done watching. I made one small adjustment. Nothing dramatic. Nothing illegal. Just a quiet rule written into the system itself. Every time Greg accessed the project, the system would quietly make a copy of his work somewhere else, where only I could see it. He would never notice. No alerts. No warnings. Just truth, saving itself in the background. I didn't call it revenge. It was more like balance. Because sometimes, the fairest thing you can do is let people prove themselves. On record. Revenge doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes, it just looks like good documentation. Thursday, 9:30 a.m. sharp. I wasn't on the calendar, but I was in the room. The conference hall was colder than usual. That kind of artificial chill meant to keep people awake or obedient. 12 chairs, one projector, and a wall of glass reflecting faces that didn't belong to me anymore. Greg was at the head of the table. Rehearsing his smile, I walked in quietly, coffee in hand. Nobody questioned it. In offices like ours, confidence is the only badge you need. Greg turned mid-sentence. "Marcus? Hey, didn't know you were joining." "Neither did I," said. "But since we're reviewing my system, I thought I'd listen." A few polite chuckles, the kind that mean we'll pretend this isn't awkward if you do. I took a seat near the back, second from the window, where I could see both the slides and their reflections. Mark, the VP, entered right after. "All right, let's begin." He nodded at Greg. "You're up." Greg's voice carried like a radio commercial. Crisp, rehearsed, too confident to be questioned. He started talking about the consistency framework, the optimization path, the adaptive layer. All terms I'd coined, just spoken through someone else's teeth. Slide by slide, he told my story as his own. Every sentence was a performance, every number, a souvenir. I let him go on until slide 6. That one, the performance graph, was my line in the sand. "Could you stop there?" I said. He did. The graph glowed on the wall. Latency improvement, 32%. "Where did that figure come from?" I asked. Greg blinked. "It's from internal testing." "Which benchmark?" He hesitated. "The standard throughput metric." "The same one I used," I said softly. "Except my test showed 33.2%, not 32. You rounded down." He smiled nervously. "I simplified it for clarity." "Of course," I said. "That's what people do when they don't understand the details." The room fell silent. Someone's pen stopped tapping. Someone else shifted in their chair. You could feel the air change, a small current of awareness moving. Through the group, Mark frowned. "Marcus, you're saying you produced this?" I met his eyes. "No, I'm saying I built the system this entire presentation is based on." Greg laughed, too quickly. "Marcus, we collaborated on this, remember?" "Interesting," I said. "Because your name doesn't appear on any version before last Tuesday at 11:42 p.m. His face stiffened. That number hit exactly where it was meant to. I opened my folder, slid a printed sheet across the table, the one with the audit log. "This system doesn't argue," I said. "It records. Every edit. Every overwrite." Mark leaned forward reading the paper. "Original author, M. Hale. Overwrite, G. Nolan." He looked up. "Greg, can you explain this?" Greg stammered something about version control, about files getting crossed. It didn't matter. Everyone could see the precision of the truth. The silence in the room wasn't confusion. It was recalibration. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. When Greg stopped talking, I stood, adjusted my cuff, and said, "Next time, use the right version. The working one. Then I picked up my folder and left the room. No one called after me. The meeting continued, but not really. Once truth enters the room, the performance ends, even if the slides keep changing. Outside, the hallway felt warmer. Through the glass, I could still see Greg standing there, pale and blinking, like a man realizing too late that integrity keeps better records than people do. For weeks, I'd been invisible. That morning, I didn't need to be seen. I just needed to be undeniable. Sometimes, revenge isn't confrontation, it's confirmation. The day after the meeting felt different, not louder, just lighter. Emails sounded quieter, footsteps softer. Even the coffee machine hissed with a little less authority. People didn't look at me. Not directly. But I could feel the shift. You can always tell when silence changes from avoidance to respect. By noon, the story had already spread, not officially. Of course, no one ever writes this kind of thing down. But whispers travel faster than memos. And in every version of the story, one thing stayed consistent. Greg had been caught presenting something that wasn't his. I didn't gloat, didn't even smile. I just worked, quietly, like always. At 2:17 p.m., I got a message from Mark, the VP short, polite. "Marcus, could you stop by my office when you have a minute?" I went. He closed the door behind me, leaned on the desk, and exhaled. "Hell of a show yesterday," he said. I shook my head. It wasn't a show. It was maintenance. That made him smile, the kind of smile people give when they realize they've underestimated you. He sat down. I reviewed the logs. "You were right. It's impressive you kept that kind of detail." "It's not impressive," I said. "It's design. Systems should tell the truth, even when people don't." He nodded slowly. "I've reassigned the project. You'll lead client implementation starting Monday." I nodded back. Simple, direct, fair. Before I left, he added quietly, "For what it's worth, good work handling it the way you did. No noise." "Noise doesn't scale," I said. "Structure does," he laughed softly. "You should write that down." "I already did," I said. When I walked back to my desk, Greg's space was empty. His nameplate was gone, drawer half open, chair turned slightly away, the physical remains of a man who thought speed could outrun precision. I didn't ask where he went. I didn't need to. The system would tell me eventually. Sarah stopped by later. Holding 2 coffees, she set one on my desk and smiled. "Guess the system works," she said. I looked at the screen, then back at her. It always has. People just stopped believing in it. We talked for a while, about normal things, not revenge, not credit, not fairness, and for the first time in months, it felt like work again, not survival. Before leaving that evening, I opened the archived folder I'd named Fairness Proof. I deleted it, not because I needed to, but because I'd already won the only kind of victory that matters: clarity. Revenge isn't fire, it's precision, and once it's done, you don't need to keep the ashes. I shut down my computer, picked up my coat, and walked past the conference room where it had all happened. The projector was off, the lights dim, but the reflection of the screen still hung faintly on the glass, like a ghost of the truth, still visible if you knew how to look. Justice isn't loud, it's consistent, and that's enough. The week after Greg's exit felt strangely calm. Meetings ran shorter, emails got clearer. People stopped copying the world on every thread, as if truth needed an audience to exist. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was quiet, and quiet, I've learned, is the sound of systems healing. They gave me the project back. Not with an announcement or a headline, just a short line in the update report. System architecture, reassigned to M. Hale. No explanation, no ceremony. Exactly how fairness should look: clean and unsentimental. When I opened the project folder again, it felt different. The data was the same, the files unchanged, but the air around them had shifted. The noise was gone. Only structure remained. I didn't rebuild everything. I rebuilt processes, parts that decide who gets seen and who gets forgotten. First, I rewrote access permissions so that every contribution carried a visible trace of its author. No more silent edits. No more disappearing names. Then I designed a new audit system, one that didn't just log actions but displayed them transparently, every change, every upload, every version visible on a single screen. Not to punish, just to remind. I called it Integrity Mirror. A small name for a simple idea. If people know their work reflects back, they behave differently. At first, no one noticed. Then they did. And suddenly, the office started running. Smoother. Credit became clearer. Collaboration felt lighter. It wasn't magic, just visibility. Fairness doesn't need power. It only needs light. Mark stopped by one afternoon while I was testing the dashboard. He leaned over my chair, watching the system trace every edit in real time. "This is impressive," he said. "It's accountability without punishment." I nodded. Accountability is the opposite of punishment. It's memory, he laughed. "You really think one tool can change how people work?" "No," I said. "But it can make dishonesty inconvenient." That's how structure wins. Not by catching people, but by making it easier to stay clean than to cheat. By the end of the quarter, the Integrity Mirror became standard protocol for every team. People stopped hiding behind polite chaos. They started naming things again. Names, credits, timestamps. I never mentioned Greg. I didn't need to. He'd already become a story, the kind people tell when they need to remember why documentation matters. Sometimes, rebuilding isn't about starting over, it's about removing the reasons things fell apart in the first place. When the system update went live, I stayed late that night to watch it run, one by one. The entries lit up on the screen, names, times, changes, each one a small, silent truth. I leaned back, listening to the hum of the server, and realized something. Revenge had turned into design. Fairness had become architecture. I didn't destroy the system. I rewired it, and this time, it remembers everyone. It happened 3 months later, a Thursday again. They always are. Patterns I've learned don't disappear. They repeat until you fix them. That morning, I got a calendar invite from HR subject line, System Audit Follow-up. I smiled. The irony was almost poetic. When I walked in, Mark was there. So was a woman from compliance, laptop open, posture too straight, and then Greg. He looked different, not ruined, just smaller, like someone who had finally met the limits of his own confidence. He didn't look at me right away. He was busy, explaining something about miscommunication, about process clarity, about how easily things can be misinterpreted. He said miss 3 times in one sentence. It's strange how people try to soften truth by prefixing it. Mark nodded toward me. "Marcus, could you open the Integrity Mirror?" I did. The screen lit up. White, clean, unarguable, every edit, every change, every version, recorded in sequence. My name, Greg's name, 2 different colors, 2 different timelines, side by side. Greg stopped talking mid-sentence. His eyes followed the screen the way a man watches his own shadow. For the first time, Mark didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "This is what we call transparency," he said quietly. Greg tried to speak. "I didn't mean—" "I know," I said. "That's the problem. You never mean it. You just do it." He looked at me then. Not angry, not sorry, just empty, like someone finally realizing the system he ignored was always watching back. The compliance officer cleared her throat. "We'll finalize the review," she said. "Marcus, your implementation has been exemplary." I nodded once. "Thank you." It was never about punishment. It was about precision. She smiled faintly. "And you built that perfectly." Greg stood. He didn't say goodbye, just gathered his papers, looked at the screen one last time, and left. The door closed softly. That's how justice sounds when it's done right. Not a slam. Just a seal. Mark turned to me. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. This was never personal. He nodded. "Still, it's rare to see something this clean." "It's not clean," I said. "It's consistent. There's a difference. When I walked out, the corridor lights flickered, motion sensors waking up to movement. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible walking through them. The system saw me. Accurately. I stopped by the glass wall of the server room. Inside, the machines hummed in perfect rhythm, the same quiet sound that had once mocked me, now echoing back like applause. People forget names. Systems don't. That's why I built one that remembers fairness. I walked away. No anger. No pride. Just balance. Revenge had ended a long time ago. What was left now was order. Weeks passed. The office moved on. Or at least, it pretended to. Greg's name faded from the meetings, from the chats, from the quiet rhythm of corporate memory. But his absence left something useful behind, a kind of clarity that only comes after noise. People started working differently, not faster, not harder, just cleaner. Credit was clearer. Conversations shorter, and truth, the real kind, not the performative kind, started showing up again. One evening, I stayed later than usual. The lights hummed. The monitors glowed soft white and the air felt balanced. I opened the integrity mirror one last time. The system ran its nightly audit. Calm, quiet, exact. No errors, no missing names, no ghosts. For the first time in months, there was nothing to fix, just the clean silence of things working the way they should. I leaned back and watched the screen, every name reflected, every action visible, fairness not as an idea, but as a pattern, precise, repeatable, remembered. I smiled. Not at victory. At order. Revenge was supposed to feel like power. But this felt better. It felt like peace. I shut down my computer, picked up my coat, and walked past the same glass room where it all started. No tension. No ghosts, just the quiet hum of a system that finally told the truth. Revenge was never the goal. Dignity was. Justice doesn't make noise. It just keeps records. I stopped at the elevator and caught my reflection in the steel doors. For a moment, I saw the man I'd been months ago. Silent, dismissed, invisible, and then the man I'd become. Calm, consistent, unshakable. That was my story. Proof that dignity doesn't need to shout to win. If you've ever faced something like this, being overlooked, replaced, or quietly erased, tell me your story in the comments. I read everyone. Because fairness doesn't vanish. It waits. Like the video, and subscribe to the Office Revenge Diaries, where every story ends with dignity restored. Revenge ends when justice begins.